So in this video, we're going to be looking at the MassFx physics engine built into 3ds Max. So if you want to do any physics simulations, you'll use the MassFx physics engine. So let's get started. I'm just going to maximize my perspective view, right click and maximize viewport. And then we're going to create a simple floor. So just create a box. And we're going to apply some physics to some teapots and let them fall onto the floor and bounce around. So let's just start with one teapot. Let's create a teapot in the center and let's just move it up a bit. So I'm pressing W on the keyboard and I'm moving it up on the Z axis. About that high should be fine. And then we need to tell the MassFx engine that this will be a dynamic object and the floor will be a static object. Basically, you get three different types of objects when using MassFx. You get your dynamic object. That will be any objects that you want to apply physics to or dynamics to. And then you get your static objects. Those will be static objects that don't move around and they will interact with your dynamic objects, and no gravity or dynamics will be applied to your static objects. And then thirdly, you get kinematic objects. That will be objects that will be pre-animated within 3ds Max that will also interact with any other dynamic objects. So I know that's a lot, but I'm going to show you the functionality of all three, those different kinds of objects. So if you look right at the top on the toolbar in 3ds Max, you'll see your MassFx tools. These ones I'm circling right now. If you don't have that, you can right click on your toolbar and make sure that MassFx toolbar is enabled. So first of all, we're going to select our teapot, and on the little sphere icon, if you click and hold in, it will give you the three objects. Basically, the first one is set as dynamic object, second one is kinematic object, and the last one is a static rigid body. So the teapot we want to set as a dynamic rigid body because we want to apply dynamics to that. And then we're going to select the floor and we're going to click and hold that button again, and we're going to set the floor as a static rigid body. So to preview your simulation, you can just hit the play button right here at the top, and this will actually play back your simulation. As you can see, it's looking quite cool. And you can just click that again to stop and then click on the reset simulation button next to that, and it will reset back to the front. Another thing that we can do is to dock the MassFx tools on the side, and you can do that by clicking on this button here. This will open up the MassFx tools, and if you drag it to the side of your window, it will actually dock on the side, and then you've got all the properties that we're going to be using right here on the side. So let's create another teapot. So I'm just going to create a teapot on this side. Let's drag it up, and I'm going to press E and just rotate that around a bit so we get some interesting dynamics from it. And let's create another teapot, maybe something like that. I'm just going to move it up and let's just rotate that around as well. And now we need to set these two objects as dynamic objects as well. So what you can do is you can highlight your first object, hold in Control on your keyboard, click the other object, and then hold in this button and set to dynamic rigid body. Okay, let's play back our simulation. Cool. Now what you can see, there's a problem here where this is actually not falling off from this floor object. So I'm just going to reset the simulation, and then on the side I'm going to untick use ground collisions, and let's simulate that again. Okay, now you can see they're actually falling off of our ground object, which is great, and I'm going to stop that and just reset that again. Okay, some other settings that you can change is if you select all these teapots and you go to the third tab, the multi-object editor, you can actually set their physical material to something specific like cardboard, concrete, limestone, rubber, etc. Or you can change these settings manually down here, like the density, the mass, the static friction, dynamic friction, and also the bounciness. So maybe let's set this to rubber for now, and you'll see that it will actually lock these parameters because it will set it accordingly to that preset. And let's start the simulation again. And you'll see that they bounce a little bit more because we set them to rubber. So let's just stop that and reset. And let's click on this lock so that we can open up these settings and change them ourselves. So I'm going to set my preset back to none. And I'm going to change the bounciness to around 1. Let's play that back again. Okay, now you can see they're bouncing quite nicely. Alright, so I'm going to reset the simulation again. And I'm going to create a few more teapots. Okay, let's just set our new teapots to dynamic objects as well. So I'm holding in Control, clicking on them, holding in on this sphere and setting them as dynamic rigid bodies. Alright, let's just simulate that again. Okay, there we go. And now I'm going to highlight all these teapots, and I'm just going to set a preset. Let's change them to a concrete physical material, and let's just play that back again. So what I want to do next, I want to add a kinematic object to the scene. And the kinematic object will be pre-animated, and that will also interact with our dynamic objects. Okay, so let's create a sphere. You can make it quite big. So what I want to do with the sphere is I want to pre-animate it so it actually moves through the scene. So I'm going to make it start over here, and then I'm going to create some keyframes so that it animates just across this area here. Okay, so we're going to start at frame 0, and I'm going to set auto key and click on the key to create a keyframe. And let's go to around frame 50, and I'm just going to move the sphere over to around there, and I'm going to go out of auto key. So now we've got this animation with a sphere, and then I need to set the sphere as a kinematic object. So with the sphere selected, I'm going to click on the ball here at the top, and I'm going to click on set selected as kinematic rigid body. Alright, let's do a quick simulation now. Okay, and as you can see, that sphere is actually interacting with those teapots. It's actually bumping them, and then they both fall off the ground. Okay, so once you're happy with your simulation, you will need to bake that simulation. So what you need to do is you go to the second tab on your MassFx tools here on the side. Make sure you reset your simulation, and then you just click on the bake all. And that will actually create keyframes for your simulation to actually record them here at the bottom. And once that's done, you can scrub your timeline, and your animation will be baked, and everything will be keyframed accordingly. So let's say we click on one of these teapots, you'll see that it's got some animation here at the bottom. And if we open up the curve editor, you will be able to see all those keyframes recorded in there as well. So yeah, that's MassFx in 3ds Max. At the end of the first chapter, we will get into more details and use that in a real world simulation. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.